Welcome to ikahi Mediation Centers. Welcome to our Finding Solutions Growing Peace Brown Bag Lunch Series. Aloha, my name is Shelby Morrison, and I am the Program and Communications Coordinator at ikahi Mediation Center. Welcome, welcome. Ikahi is a nonprofit community mediation center serving East Hawaii. We were founded in 1983 as a program of the island of Hawaii's YMCA, and in 2006, we became our own independent nonprofit. So we are celebrating 20 years. We empower people to come together, to talk and to listen, to explore options, and to find their own best solutions. To achieve this mission, we offer mediation, facilitation, and trainings just like this one to strengthen the ability of diverse individuals and groups to resolve interpersonal conflicts and community issues. Our Brown Bag Lunch series is held every third Thursday at 12 noon here on Zoom, and you do need to make sure you register on Eventbrite each time to receive that Zoom link. Some other events coming up are on August 20th, we have our next brown bag with ombudsperson and mediator Sue Theus, and her talk is titled Conflict is an Opportunity, How Mediators Can Work with Discomfort. So if you're a mediator or you find yourself mediating conflict, this is a great one to make sure you register for. Some other events, our conflict prevention and resolution training series will be having another session on August 6th with Diane Petropoulos, and her workshop is titled Civility in the Workplace. The investment is $50 with group discounts and needs-based scholarships available, and it will be held at the University of Hilo, room UCB 127 from 8:30 to 12:30. And you can register for that with the link that I will pop in the chat here. On July 23rd, we'll be hosting our preview party to kick off the 2026 annual Orchid Show and Sale in Hilo. This fundraiser will run from 6 to 9 and will be at the Edith Kanakaole Stadium. The evening gala features a generous, very generous selection of fine wines, beers on tap, other hard and soft beverages, and delectable catered food, live music, and orchid viewing and pre-sales. Ticket proceeds go to benefit ikahi Mediation Center's Cause for Peace, and silent auction proceeds will benefit Hilo Orchid Society's Scholarship Fund. Tickets are $115, of which $40 is tax deductible and includes a fun souvenir wine or beer glass. Tickets will be available online on our website, but they can also be purchased in person at our office or at the Most Irresistible shop. I will pop that information into the chat. You can always email or give us a call if you have questions. Our next basic mediation training starts September 24th. This 3-day training is how our professionally trained volunteer mediators get their start. These fabulous folks donate their time to help community members communicate, negotiate, and resolve disputes. And we're always looking for additional community members to learn conflict prevention and resolution skills. So please do consider joining our mediator apprenticeship program. Now, just so you all know, for this program, this mediation training does close on September 18th. But as I want to make sure you all know, there are scholarships available that will be partial based on needs. So feel free to visit us at the link in the chat to learn more about that basic mediation training. Great for resumes, but also for some great life skills. At the end of today's talk, we will ask you to fill out a short online survey, which helps with our grant funding for this free series. So when I pop that link in the chat at the end of the talk, please just take a moment to give us your thoughts. We'll also be sending out an email later with the slides, the video link, and that survey link once more. So without further ado, let me introduce our topic, meetings that feel clear, effective, and gentle on nervous systems. And our speaker is Miss Michelle Tsutsumi, who is a certified sociocracy trainer who practices sociocracy within the worker co-op she co-founded, Sociocracy for All. She utilizes deep listening to co-design processes that enact collective care and the decolonization of both self and organizations. Her work has been within nonprofits, food justice, and cooperative sectors. She is especially interested in practices that facilitate emergent spaces and the stamina to navigate transitions. Take it away, Michelle.
Great. Thanks so much, Shelby. I'm just going to start sharing my screen. Um, Very much, I was so thrilled and pleased to receive the invitation to be a part of your Brown Bag Lunch series and hearing all of your offerings. It's really amazing. There are so many sessions that piqued my curiosity, and very much look forward to sharing a little bit about meetings through a sociocracy lens. And also just want to clarify that I'm here through my work with Sociocracy for All, and then the worker co-op I'm a part of is Sunflower Facilitation and Counseling Co-op. Um, so let's begin with sharing a bit of welcome and overview. And part of my practice in this portion of a session is to really recognize the land where I'm coming from. I'm calling in from Secwepemcúlecw, which is in the south interior of British Columbia in Canada. So I'm about 5 hours east of Vancouver, 5 hours northeast of Seattle. And my learning lineage is weaving together body-centered psychotherapy, cultivating safe spaces, which is a framework um, formed on Indigenous teachings, and then the lived experiences of each facilitator. And I'm also an organic farmer, and that is how I came to know sociocracy, which was through that community. And it just seemed very interesting as a different way of being in meetings and shared work. So I started my learning journey in 2022. And in 2023, I became a certified facilitator. And more recently, in 2025, became a certified trainer. And it's been such an enjoyable learning journey. So I'm very happy to share that with you. And I have an invitation for you when I find the chat.
And Michelle, just so you know, we just see your desktop right now.
Oh, okay. Thank you for letting me know. So let me go back to this. You got to see my messy desktop. Are you seeing the slide deck now?
Yes, perfect.
Okay. Um, I'm going to open up the chat again and invite you to share how you are arriving in the session today. It could be one or two words or an emoji, and one way that you are feeling connected to the land where you are joining from. And as folks are sharing in the chat a bit about themselves, I'll share a bit more about our time together today. So I am going to share an overview of sociocracy overall and what it has to offer, and then focus more specifically on sociocratic meeting structures and how they contribute to clarity, effectiveness, and how that in combination is gentle on nervous systems. Following this, I will share additional resources and there will be room for questions and answers. I'm going to speckle that throughout and then have dedicated time at the end as well, and then move into feedback and closing. Appreciating these emojis. Thank you. A range of how folks are arriving. Hmm. So as we move into a session on meetings, probably we have experiences and memories of meetings that could have been a lot better. Um, I can think of meetings where I was wondering, like, why are we all coming together in this time when one person is really speaking for pretty much the whole meeting? Um, if it's to build shared understanding, that's super helpful to have them share reports on the work that's happening. When a group of us comes together, that's really a beautiful opportunity to receive input and feedback and make the decisions together um, to be able to do the work. And so this is a moment to sort of imagine meetings where things are moving forward smoothly and with clarity. The purpose of each agenda item is understood by everyone. There's space for everyone to be heard, and folks have time and space to arrive and be present in their own way. And in this, there's an invitation for a moment of solo reflection, thinking about meetings you've been in. Maybe they've been agonizing or energizing. Just make a note of one or two wishes that you might hold for better meetings. Spoiler alert, this might surface later on in the presentation. So in terms of the overview of sociocracy, there are three core elements. So the first one is decision by consent. And this is a framework that defines how decisions are made. And to be able to do that, each group that's working together has a clear aim. And this provides a North Star. This provides a clear picture of the work that is being done together and why it provides boundaries and alignment for the decisions being made. So there might be a working group that has an aim of tending to client or member relationships. Another group or committee, their aim might be organizing learning spaces similar to this one. And so they would then have the agency and autonomy to make the decisions related to those aims. In sociocracy, objections are welcome. They're seen as gifts, and there are mechanisms to integrate objections so that everyone gets to a place of saying yes to the proposal. Another element is circle structure, and this is a way to distribute the authority and responsibility. This is passing on who decides about what through those aims. This one is really fascinating and beyond the scope of today's session because it's really digging into organizational structure. A third element is continuous feedback, and there is a commitment to improvement with regular opportunities for feedback. Um, you'll notice that there's a cyclical rhythm over time. So each meeting has space for feedback. Performance reviews would have feedback every year, and performance reviews in sociocracy are very caring and human-centered, and people who are the focus person of a performance review feel very energized, and it's part of their ongoing learning. It's a very supportive process. Policy reviews, those might happen every 2 or 3 years. And then the circle or committee reviews happen when membership shifts, or maybe there's a helping circle and its job is done and it can disband. There would be feedback at the end of that. And actually, I just had one of those today as a helping circle wrapped up for a training session. So where do all of these elements converge? And that is meetings, where we spend a significant amount of time and energy. So let's take a closer look at what meetings look like in sociocracy through some of their structures. So we'll start off by sharing an agenda template. The slide deck will be shared and there are hyperlinks here. This one has a link to templates that are available. So this is one that you could plug into your own systems. So looking at this, curious to hear about initial reactions in the chat or to yourself. What comes up for you when you see this? What do you notice? There might be thoughts of like, whoa, this is a lot. Okay, structure, yes. A reaction might be, whew, I feel relief. This is very organized. And okay, thanks, Felicity. Um, So it could be overwhelming with the amount that's in here. It could provide relief because people know what to expect and it's organized. Um, and when I first saw this agenda, I was like, wow, this seems very structured, very boxy. The time amounts and limits to it felt very constricting. And then the more I used it and practiced with it, I came to the realization that for me, it provided a container that I could just, these are the elements I didn't need to have time and energy towards in the meeting. It was there, and the container was then freed up to have space to explore the tension or complex issues, and to make the decisions together. So it actually frees up a lot of space. So I'm going to take you through a tour of each of the elements of a sociocratic structure and agenda. And I'm going to start off with looking at the elements of it that support clarity. So rounds are listed first, and it's kind of funny because they are not explicitly in the agenda. However, rounds are a foundational process that is lived in each part of the agenda. So the rounds create a pattern where each person knows that they will have space to share or pass, and it expands the practice of deep listening and listening to understand each other with presence. Um, the intention is to set aside judgment or thinking about what to say next when it's your turn, because everyone knows they have a turn in the round. And it's been interesting for me to witness how the regular practice of rounds shifts the energy and focus of a group. So the next elements I want to focus on are relational elements. So at the beginning and end of the agenda, the sections are color coded in blue. And this is in part to highlight that these parts of the agenda are in every meeting. They provide relational anchor points that allow a gentle arrival to the meeting space through an opening round and room to close the meeting in a thoughtful way through a closing or checkout round. So this is a rhythm where what happens at the beginning and ending of a meeting is predictable and people know what to expect every time. So following the opening round, you can see this section here has orienting details that help to ground each person in the meeting and the purpose of the group coming together. So the acronym ADMIN is used to move through these details. A is for attendance. This is the time to check in on who is here, who is missing, are all of the roles filled. So if someone is missing, that's a cue to fill the role and also highlight who might need specific connection after the meeting to share decisions made or any homework or asynchronous work that's needed. The duration is there to confirm how long the meeting is. It's funny how many meetings I've been in where the time boundary hasn't been explicitly named. And so it is helpful to be like, we have 60 minutes together. Does anyone need to leave early? And then maybe agenda items need to be arranged to accommodate that. The M is for minutes, and that's a quick check-in. Is everything up to date? Anything needing attention that isn't already in the agenda. The I is for information, and this is space to share any announcements that are unrelated to the meeting. So these are great opportunities to share in details about webinars, conferences, maybe updates on work that don't need agenda time. And then space to look at N, which is for the next meeting. This might already be a confirmed next date if it's a regular meeting, or this is the cue to make a plan for a next meeting. Another element for clarity is it's really clear on the doing and who is doing what. So At the top is the action item accountability list. This isn't unique to sociocracy. However, this is clear on every agenda, who had an action item, what it was. That can be checked off quickly at the top of the meeting. A lot of times it's already done ahead of the meeting. It's also space for people to name progress, modify timelines if something needs more time than originally thought, or people can ask for support to complete something. And then before the closing round, there is space to list the action items that surfaced in the meeting. And then that can be copy and pasted into the next agenda, followed by noting any backlog items. And the backlog items are topics that need to be on a future agenda. And then this is also a place to amplify and prioritize items that need to be on the next agenda in particular. So the purpose one, the purpose is very clear in sociocratic agendas because each item is identified with a tag that shows its purpose. So the R is for report, E is for explore, and D is for decide, which we will dip into a bit more here. So the report agenda item, the intention here is to build shared understanding within the group. And so someone will share the information and then a round will come in here and give everyone the opportunity to ask clarifying questions to understand the information that's been shared. The explore agenda item is going to provide shared understanding, and the intention is to gather reactions and opinions to what has been shared in the topic that is being explored. So there will be two rounds in an explore agenda item. You will have a round of clarifying questions and then a round of reactions. And then in a decide agenda item, you have the shared understanding, you've gathered input, reactions, ideas, and then you want to make a decision. So you have the round of clarifying questions to understand the proposal. You can have quick reactions to the proposal and then move to a consent round, which is inviting consent or objection. So it maybe seems repetitive. What happens is these rounds really break the process down and allows things to move at the speed of trust and at the speed of that shared understanding. I added a bit of bonus material here for the note takers. Depending on what agenda item is there, those are the details that are helpful to note for people to refer back to or people who weren't in the meeting to be able to catch up. So I have a bit of an activity. So I've got some agenda items here, and I would love for you to put in the chat which type of agenda item you think it is. So the first one is, what do we want to do during our team retreat in October? Which sounds lovely. Do you think this is a report, explore, or decide? You can put the letter or the word explore. B, yeah, great. Lots of B's, explorers, yes. This one is definitely explore, needing to gather input from everybody in the meeting. The second agenda item, so we're in a group and we're focused on customer experience, and the customer care circle just sent us new data that we've been waiting for related to customer experience. So we've received this data. Okay, awesome. A report, report, report. Seeing lots coming in with report. And yes, this is a report. Okay, I'm going to try to bring in some different variations here. The third agenda item. So Yolanda, we've been working on a main project. Yolanda's been the lead on it. Yolanda has an important update on the Circle's main project. Seeing some more A's for report. Yes. Great. Oops. So the next agenda item is that we have received an RFP, invited to apply for a contract, and they have sent the request for proposal and proposes to our team that we do not submit this proposal to provide strategic planning services. Is this report, explore, decide? I see C for decide, B, explore. Oh, okay, another decide. Great. So the proposal is here. Initially, it could be a decide. Um, if there are like strong reactions in the reaction round, or there is an objection to the proposal, it would move into explore. So this one is sort of like, it depends on what happens here. In the last agenda item, so Leander's curious if we allow dogs in our co-working space. Would that be a report, explore, or decide? B and C. Oh, nice. I like these combo answers. And that can happen in an agenda. You could have two tags for the agenda items. So it could be B and C. It could also be a report if there is already a policy around dogs in co-working spaces. So this one needs a bit more context. So it could really be any of them, depending on that context. Thanks, everyone, for participating in that. So we just had a group of elements of meeting agendas that support clarity. So this really develops patterns and rhythms that allow the nervous system to know what comes next. And the following experiences support us to be in the part of our brain that navigates strategy and decision making. So rounds ensure that every voice has space to share or pass. So vying for space is not necessary. Relational beginnings and endings to the meetings builds understanding about what's happening around work, and that helps to build trust and connection. There's shared doing and responsibility, and that means we know who is doing what, and that one person doesn't have to carry it all. And this can be an antidote to burnout. And knowing why we are talking about something helps us to know what is expected in the moment. Not knowing can be unsettling or confusing, and that can be activating. So we'll pause here for a couple questions or reflections, clarifying questions or reactions. You can come through the chat or raise your digital hand. Okay, not seeing any, so I'll move on to, wondering who is preparing the agenda and leading the meeting. Oh, awesome question, Yuki. And that is actually going to come up in the next part of the presentation. So I might just go through that part of the presentation, and if your question still stands, I can continue with it. So in terms of meeting effectiveness, one of the elements is after the relational opening to the meeting, there is a request for consent to the agenda. And it seems simple and it has a huge impact. So when people are consenting to the agenda here, they're consenting to the agenda items, the type of the agenda item. So is it a report, explore, or decide, and the time that has been allotted for it. And I've witnessed powerful adjustments being made when there are objections to the agenda. And often the objections improve the agenda. And so it is helpful to offer them up at the top of the meeting instead of navigating an agenda item that wasn't given enough time from the beginning. So when consent is achieved, there is a shared responsibility around addressing the different agenda items in the time frame that has been agreed upon, or changing things later with the group's consent. So consent contributes to it being effective and also flexible. So in terms of the decision making, if there is a decide agenda item, I did want to speak briefly on consent decision making, which is Sociocracy's approach to it. In this dark orange section, this is the point where everyone agrees. This is what would be present in consensus decision making. This is often connected with personal preference, what's really important to me, my values, what's aligned with that. And with consent decision making, we just expand that a bit into this, what is called range of tolerance. And these are the proposals that would be good enough for now and safe enough to try. So that just opens up a bit more possibility. And then there is room for objection. Objections are welcome. And these are objections are offered when the proposal is going to work against the aim of the circle, or if it's going to put it at risk in some way. And so it is helpful for people to be aware of that and to name that so that the group can find a different way that can be aligned with the aim. So in the earlier example where a group's aim is tending to client or member relationships, a proposal to invest a significant sum of money in advertising or promotions to the general public could be objected to because it isn't clear how this would serve clients or members directly. So it's a very simple example, but when objections are raised, often the facilitator will just check in how it is connected with the aim of the group. So in this image, you can see here, this would be overlap of all the preferences. And then the larger shape would be an overlap of all the ranges of tolerance. And this would be a group of six to eight people. So you can see how that range of tolerance and consent zone gives a bit more space to try things out. So here's where we'll get to your question, Yuki. And I've included information about circle roles. And there might be a question around what do they have to do with agendas and meeting structures. I wanted to highlight these because the people in these roles are the ones who help the process to flow smoothly, and they work together in complementary ways. So in sociocracy, the circle roles that tend to different elements of the agenda are the leader, and they make sure that the circle is making progress towards its aim. They're holding all the details in relation to the big picture, and they create the agenda. And there is the secretary or note taker or scribe who take the notes, keep the circle files current, and provide the frame for the next meeting's agenda. So when a meeting is finished, they put a clean agenda up. They include any new action items and any agenda items from the backlog that were intended for the next meeting. And then the facilitator who holds the process of the meeting and keeps things moving through the agenda, ensuring that everyone has space to share. Operational roles are just to note that they are often in circles or groups as well. It's the circle roles, leader, secretary, facilitator, who hold responsibility for the agenda and flow of the meeting. So rounds pop up here as well for effectiveness because each person having their turn to speak along with a crisp prompt for whether it is a round of clarifying questions, a round of quick reactions, or a round to ask for consent or objection. That keeps things moving and on track. So another element of effectiveness is feedback. And this is in the meetings, it is an expected and regular invitation to share feedback for how the meeting could be better next time. And so it could be better in terms of content, what was talked about, process, how it was worked through, and connection. This is a space where people share appreciations, people name tensions that were present and might need tending to in another meeting or another conversation. So, how is effectiveness gentle on the nervous system? So, the sociocracy agenda and meetings are really clear on boundaries, and knowing what our boundaries are means we know what we can do, when, and how. The boundaries help to make it clear when the rest of the group needs to be involved in decision making. And this is really speaking to roles in sociocracy and discerning operational and policy decisions. Operational decisions are held usually within a person and they can just go with it, make decisions related to their work. They don't need to seek consent from the rest of the group. So that helps with effectiveness and efficiency. But these boundaries make it clear when people in an operational role need to bring things back to the group to work through and find a solution or make decisions about. So the boundaries around consent and objections, I think sociocracy is really clear on welcoming objections. They often lead to better proposals and more clarity on what needs to be done. The role definition and how the roles work together allows the work to happen with ease. There's less hesitation or bottlenecks. And it's also more easeful to hand things off for a little bit or rotate roles. And so there's a lot of like skill and knowledge sharing that builds resilience within the group. The rounds keep things flowing and foster a deepening into complexity rather than getting stuck. And the feedback really roots the circle in a mindset of experimentation and trying things out. Learning happens when things go well and when they don't. And I found that very liberating within sociocracy is the intention is to try things out and then reflect and evaluate together and make shifts and adapt and work with that for a little bit. So I'll pause here for any questions, reactions, reflections. Check in with Yuki if your questions were answered. Okay. I'm going to share some next steps and possibilities. Um, so Sociocracy for All has many resources. There are several books to dig into, different different parts of the framework, and from here to there is really focused on implementation. Who Decides is one of the earlier books, and that really supports setting up the first few meetings. Many Voices, One Song is very comprehensive around the foundational elements of sociocracy. Let's Decide Together is focused on like children and bringing it into um, groups and democratic decision making with kids. And Collective Power is newer, and it's looking at how we build power within to be able to also hold power with in groups to contribute to collective aims and well-being. And the dates for this just got released. We have a facilitation class. It's 3 2-hour classes. There's a little bit of teaching and then a lot of practice. And you'll find that in all of the webinars and teaching materials through Sociocracy for All. The beauty is in learning by doing. And I've heard great things about this class. People have a lot of fun, and it is very practical. Lots of things to bring into your different contexts. And then for a really deep dive, there's Academy, and this is 23 weeks, 2 hours a week, also a combination of content, teaching, and practice. So it's very in-depth. Folks who are interested in certification, this program will lead to practitioner and facilitator certification. Folks really appreciate the group phases. There's the opportunity to work in 2 smaller groups, and you're using all of these tools and practices within a group. And it's fascinating. A lot of the comments from this is how this group comes together, and these people are coming from different contexts and backgrounds. And through the tools of sociocracy, they're able to put together a project and a presentation in the span of 6 weeks. So it's really a fascinating framework in how it can bring together so much difference and work towards a shared aim. So before I open it up to Q&A, just want to share my email address. I love chatting about sociocracy. So if you have questions pop up, please do reach out. I have my email address here. Sociocracy for All's website is full of things, templates, information, videos, and so it's a great resource. And these questions at the end, I will put in the chat at the very end, but I'll stop sharing and open it up for Q&A or reactions if anything sparked and seemed something you're curious to try. You can raise a digital hand or pop something into the chat.
So I'll ask a question, Michelle. So you mentioned right at the beginning when you showed the agenda how structured it was. And I know for many people who are part of all sorts of meetings, whether it's at work or a nonprofit or any sort of club that they're a part of, the meetings easily just derail, right? Someone has something that, oh, I forgot to mention this and this came up, and what about this and what about this? So what would you suggest? I mean, how do you ensure that that you're keeping to those times that are very strict and very structured, and you're not allowing the meetings to derail with all the little things that can come up?
Yeah, so I mean that does happen in meetings. If something is raised that fits in with an agenda item and needs more time, that's a space to check in with the group and be like, this feels like it's part of this and would need another 10 minutes. That would mean bumping this to the next meeting. So you check in with the group and you seek consent on modifying the agenda. And I have seen that happen. Or if the other pieces on the agenda also need time that day, then it could be like, this is a conversation that is bigger than we thought initially. Let's add this to the backlog, and we need this to be on the next agenda. So that might be hard. It is hard to like put things on pause and wait for the next meeting. However, that might be necessary. So there's a couple of ways to tend to that. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you.
Mhm.
All right, guys, no more questions. Sociocracy is just so easy to understand. No thoughts came up about this way of hosting your meetings.
I'll ask a
Feel
question.
free.
I'll
Great.
ask a question. What do you do when not everybody in the meeting is on board with the sociocracy approach?
So, yeah, I mean, there are elements of sociocracy that maybe the group is not agreeing to implement, like the consent decision making. That might not be part of it. So the group would use the form of decision making they use. Um, the, I think the piece of the agenda template, um, that is very sociocratic is identifying the report, explore, decide. Um, I mean, this might be something that the group needs to come to an agreement around what are the elements that they will use for the meetings. Um, I mean, rounds might come up as something that some people want to implement and some people don't. Um, I'm always curious about experiments. Like, well, could we try this for a few meetings and check in on how it was for people? Um, yeah. Were there certain elements of the meetings, Jeff, that you were like, I'm not sure if this would work in my groups or this might not be received? Yeah.
No, I'm just thinking of certain meetings that I attended or that I watch on TV or online where there's just somebody is not on board with the program or the process and they derail it in a way like Shelby just talked about. They make it longer, there's too much discussion about something or trying to manage a participant who just isn't cooperating or accepting what everybody else wants to do.
Hmm. Yeah. So depending on like how much the group knows each other, how much trust there is, sometimes in these meetings and these groups, another group member will name what's happening or what's being witnessed and make a request for something to happen. So if someone is like talking for a long time and it means that other people in the round aren't able to speak, someone might name that and make a request to kind of share their question or reaction and then continue in the round. And then that might also be a sign for the facilitator that a second round is needed. And the facilitator can be like, okay, there's a lot here. I've heard this and this. Let's continue the round and we'll do a second round. Um, and I think that's another piece, like in the culture and society we live in, there's this sense of like, if I don't get it all in now, then my chance is done. Or this process allows things to come over time and in sort of bite-sized pieces instead of gorging on it. So there's a couple of approaches to that.
So then, Michelle, would you recommend then if an organization or a club or a board would like to start implementing the sociocracy method, would you advise them to have a meeting about the sociocracy method? Like, this is what we're going to try. Here's this new structure. Here's how we want to start doing things to introduce it and to maybe get like people voting on aspects of it they're willing to try before trying to launch a full sociocracy based meeting?
Yeah, I think approaching it with curiosity is helpful, and also having a sense of the agreement is helpful. There are, yeah, a lot of the spaces I'm in, shared learning is really key, and so there are different shared learning setups. Sociocracy for All has something called Empowered Learning Circle. So it's video content, and you're doing that in the group that is maybe considering implementing parts of sociocracy. And then you have that shared understanding to be able to make informed decisions. And people can be like, I don't really know if this feels like a good fit, or this one part seems interesting and like it would be helpful for our group. Um, so yeah, I think sociocracy, me personally, really encourages building that shared understanding, um, to be able to make informed choices. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, excellent. And because there's all these different roles that would have to be introduced. Someone's going to be facilitating, and maybe you have someone trying to keep track of time, whereas that used to just fall to the main person organizing the meeting. I mean, you have all these new positions where it does kind of involve a group consensus, like, okay, this is how we're going to do this. I need everyone's participation. So it's almost like you have to get this consent before you start the meeting that's all about getting consent.
Yeah, yeah, and it might be a consent to new roles. It might be modifying roles that are already existing in different structures. I think about the Agriculture Advisory Committee that I was a part of, and it had a chair and it had a secretary. So those roles were there. The chair was doing something similar to facilitating, I think, with a different approach to it. So it could just be like, this is similar to what is already happening, and expanding it, or just like adding a couple of elements, possibly. Yeah. Yeah.
Excellent.
I'm a fan of going with what's happening and working well already, and then just
Mm-hmm.
maybe weaving in new elements. Because change is hard. Change takes time and energy. We are experiencing a lot of change around us, and so um, yeah, navigating that gently helps be able
Yeah.
to absorb the change. Yeah.
Yeah. Evolving into the more Socratic kind of method rather than a blunt overhaul of how meetings have always been done is probably going to go over much better.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Any other questions, thoughts from Miss Michelle here on this awesome sociocracy method?
Thank you, Zach. Um, Great. Well, I can pop these are my feedback questions for the session. Um, and it could be responding to one of them or all of them. Um, so I love chatterfalls. And what a chatterfall is you think up your response to one of these questions, or it could be a couple of them. You type it in the chat and just pause until I say ready, set, go. And then everyone hits enter or return at the same time. And the responses create this chatterfall. So if you would like to, I'll give a moment to pause and read through these questions, type in your responses. All right, so I'll give a couple more seconds and then ready, set, go. See, inspired, informative. Yay, goal meta professional self-development at no cost. That's great. The round method may help ensure everyone gets an opportunity to express themselves. Yes. And appreciating the emphasis on gentleness. Slow down and be intentional. Hmm. A lot of folks, we just wrapped up an academy, and a lot of folks really notice how it's like slowing down to go fast. and forming a new group and coming to these agreements, working through the initial stages, it can be very challenging and hard and agonizing. And it sets up such a great foundation, though, that when it got to the content of the project, they were like, vroom, it flowed, it came together, the presentations happened and were excellent. But um, it can be hard to slow down to, well, not even go fast, but slow down to go well. So, and it sounds like Shelby, you have a feedback form and that you will go out with the PDF file and everything. Yeah,
Yes.
great.
Yes, I've gone ahead and put that in the chat. So thank you all for coming today. Thank you, Michelle, for such a wonderful and informative presentation. I'm so glad we got to learn about sociocracy because one of our guests at a prior brown bag brought this up and brought this to my attention. So I'm really appreciative for you coming today and sharing this knowledge with all of us. I'm sure all of us will be able to take something useful that we can now go ahead and implement into our own meetings going forward. So thank you, Michelle. And
Thank you so
as a
much.
reminder for everyone, please just take a few minutes today to fill out our short online survey, which really helps with our grant funding for this free series. That survey link is in the chat. And tomorrow you'll get slides from today's presentation, as well as the video link if you'd like to rewatch this presentation and that survey link once more. So mahalo, and we will see you all next month. Bye, everybody.
Mahalo. Thanks so much. Take care.